Which quarterbacks are climbing up our draft chart for the 23 fantasy football season? We're about to tell you. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre. He's Chris. We're here to talk quarterbacks, and these are the guys that we think are risers in 2023 based on what we've just seen last season. So we're going to start with, well, maybe kind of obvious one, but this guy we are believers in. We're going to draft him as a starter, no questions asked, if possible, and that is Justin Fields. We know what he can do, obviously, with his legs. Do you feel like he can keep it up consistently and really anchor your team at the position?
Definitely do. And you know who 2022 Justin Fields kind of reminded me of? 2021 Jalen Hurts. If you remember in 2021, Jalen Hurts was good but not great, did a lot of damage with his legs. And then what did the Eagles do in 2022? Upgraded the defense, brought in A.J. Brown, got him weapons, and we saw Jalen Hurts take a massive leap this year. Now you may be saying, yeah, but this is the Bears, they're terrible. But the Bears have $100 million of cap space and the number one pick. Assuming the new GM Ryan Poles plays his cards right, this could be a drastically different Bears team next year. And I know the wide receiver free agent class isn't good, but that doesn't mean they can't trade for a wide receiver. Nobody thought A.J. Brown would be an Eagle last year. Nobody thought Tyreek Hill would be a Dolphin. Nobody thought Devontae Adams would be a Raider. And here we are. They have the ability, the cap room, the draft capital, that they could go out and make a trade for a difference-making wide receiver. And if they bolster this offensive line, if they bolster this defense, which they will be able to do not only through free agency, but through the draft, we could be looking at a team who makes a tremendous leap next year in terms of talent. So I think Justin Fields, we already know what he can do with his legs. If he gets more weapons and kind of turns into what we saw with Jalen Hurts, where he starts delivering with his arm, he could absolutely break fantasy football next year. He's definitely going to be one of my favorite QB targets in 2023.
No matter what, this wide receiver group has to be better than this year. Don't forget, they're getting Darnell Mooney back, who was a pretty good receiver. And then Chase Claypool, I'm not saying he's going to be this huge difference maker, but they acquired him for a reason. You know, once he grows in this offense, that'll be another weapon they're disposed along with whoever they draft or sign or trade for. That offensive line, they've definitely got to shore that up, and I think they will. They've got the draft capital and the money to do so. With all of this said, it almost doesn't matter how he does passing the ball, because just rushing ability alone, he is a quarterback number one for fantasy, and we've seen this. Had game-winning weeks for you. He ran for 1143 yards, and he didn't even play every game this season. One of the best rushing performances by a quarterback ever, and this was just year two. Justin Fields will get better. He will get help. He was the quarterback 5 in terms of points per game. If he goes up, yeah, you've got a league winner on your hands. The quarterback who made the biggest leap in terms of fantasy production, nowhere to go but up. But finally, I think as the season went on, we started to see what Trevor Lawrence is truly capable of. It sounds like there might be still even room to grow.
I think there is, because remember the start of the year, it looked like maybe it wasn't Urban Meyer's fault. Maybe Trevor Lawrence just wasn't that guy. But then we saw in the second half, he is that guy. He's got Doug Peterson, who's kind of a QB whisperer. We almost have to throw out Trevor Lawrence's rookie year. Stuck with Urban Meyer, almost a wasted year, really. So this almost was like his rookie year. And I think we have to start looking at Trevor Lawrence kind of like a Joe Burrow type, because remember, Trevor Lawrence was an elite prospect, number one overall pick. And Trevor Lawrence, not only does he have a great arm and great pocket presence like Joe Burrow, but he also is sneaky athletic when it comes to running. He'll scramble. He'll pick up yards. He'll score touchdowns. No, we don't think of him like a Jalen Hurts or a Josh Allen, but he runs enough, scores enough rushing touchdowns to give him that upside. Next year, full year in this system, building off going to the playoffs, they're only going to be better. This offense is only going to be better. I could see Trevor Lawrence making a huge leap next year and entering that top 8, top 5 QB discussion. Definitely going to be trying to go QB early this year if I can, but if I can't, if I miss, I'll be okay taking Trevor Lawrence and settling, quote unquote, settling on Trevor Lawrence.
I feel like I was probably a little too low on Lawrence coming into this year because I was too high on him as a rookie. This is a guy who has been hailed as a generational prospect, and we didn't see anything close to that. I also fail to, really comprehend just how much of a disaster that whole thing with Urban Meyer was, because I've never been a fan of Urban Meyer, but I did not comprehend all that could have possibly gone wrong. I think we just had to give him a total pass there. Christian Kirk was solid, maybe a little overpaid slightly, but he was still really good. Zay Jones kind of emerged out of nowhere. Evan Engram, we've talked about him in our previous video. If you check out our tight ends that are skyrocketing, Evan Engram is right there with him because of Trevor Lawrence and vice versa. And don't forget, they're going to get a really good wide receiver that they traded for. And we're going to talk about him in terms of our dynasty players that are skyrocketing. Trevor Lawrence, I would like to see him run a little bit more, but I do feel like he's done enough. He ran for about 291 yards. I mean, that's still good for top 10 among quarterbacks. The passing volume will just come along even more so. I think he's going to be a really solid quarterback one for years to come. All right, then our final pick here is a guy I admit I wanted no part of earlier in the season. But Jared Goff, I mean, didn't just turn it on. He actually somehow became an elite fantasy quarterback late in the season. You're buying into this?
I'm buying into it to a degree. I mean, you got to be encouraged by what you saw. This team showed a lot of fight down the stretch. You got to think Dan Campbell is coming back next year after what we saw. This team is on the rise as well. Remember, Jared Goff was also a number one pick. Maybe not deservedly, but he was. He did go to a Super Bowl with the Rams. It's not like he's a terrible quarterback. The thing is, he doesn't run at all. So he does have those highs and those lows where he can have those really terrible games. Jared Goff, not necessarily a quarterback I would be targeting in a one quarterback league, but I think in any 2 QB super flex league, if you can get Jared Goff as your QB2, you should be feeling great about that. He's got tremendous weekly upside. Remember, Jameson Williams will be fully integrated into this offense next year, so he'll finally have another weapon there. I think Jared Goff definitely showed, that he still has it and he's still capable of putting up huge fantasy games.
Hard to believe. During the last portion of the season, the final 5 games of 2022, Goff was better than every quarterback in the league in terms of fantasy production other than Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. End of list. He scored more fantasy points at quarterback than every other quarterback. He was the quarterback 3 over the last 5 games. That's when it matters most, of course. That's your playoffs. But it also shows how far he's come. And it's not like it was just Amon-Ra St. Brown catching all the passes. They were spreading it out. We saw Chark involved. And we see the running backs catching a ton of passes. The tight ends, who you probably couldn't even name more than 1 or 2 of them, if any. And they were throwing it to them in the end zone. This became a well-balanced, efficient offense. It wasn't just a one-man show. You already mentioned Jameson Williams. He's there. He barely even had a rookie season, and it's going to take time for him to be at full strength. That's just another weapon they already have. And this is a great offensive line, which is part of the reason you have to feel pretty good about Goff being pretty secure there. Not a guy who's going to take a ton of sacks, and he's going to have time to throw. I know we're not really advocating playing the late quarterback game as much this year, but if you do, he might be the guy that you can get away with as a starter all year long, be fine, and wait toward the end of your draft. So those are the quarterbacks that we feel really good about going into next year. But if you're looking for some guys who are going to be climbing in value for next year and even beyond in terms of dynasty leagues, we have our dynasty skyrocketing players. Don't miss it.